As a change expert, of course, you have to walk your talk. So I thought, why not make a big change right now? And the presentation will work on two different layers. On the first layer, the content, I will show you my craft, and you will learn some practical tools you can immediately use to speak more, speak better, and to raise your fees. On the second layer, the structure, I'm going to deconstruct my keynote while I'm delivering it. Let me introduce to you the 3 choices of change that will determine whether you win or lose in this business. You need to choose to focus, you need to choose to take calculated risks, and you need to choose to take action on a daily basis. And I learned that connection between focus and specific results over 13 years ago from a very special lady. She was kind of hot, but after she said her first words, you would have recognized, well, her character is more like Margaret Thatcher. She said, "Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to give you some very uncommon exercises. And no matter what you think of that exercise, I want you to react by powerfully shouting 2 words. Oh, yeah." And now everybody hugs the person standing next to him. And to my left, a 6'5" colleague with a full beard, broad shoulders, called Manfred. And then I hugged Manfred. Since that day, I look at these 2 words as a fantastic metaphor on how to deal with change. This is my little oh yeah buzzer. And every time my mind wants to go on negative autopilot, I just push it and it goes, oh yeah. And this is a perfect moment for the first time and explain to you what I just did and why I did it. Quite some time I was telling that story mainly to make a point on focus. And this was one of the key learnings in my speaker career. Always observe how your audiences react to your stories and then use these inputs to improve your speeches every time you give them. I use the buzzer as the starting point to generate additional sales and marketing. Selling these buzzers as additional service after the event, I'm basically building after-event relationships by making a lot of money. What I want you to do now is to say oh yeah to your own creativity and ask yourself the following questions. How can you connect to your audiences to build strong relationships? What additional service or products can you offer to generate after-event business? And most of all, when was the last time you really listened to your clients and adjusted your marketing to their specific needs? The second choice of change, as a speaker, you have to choose to take calculated risks on a consistent basis. I'm standing next to a guy and he looks like a typical surfer dude and he smiles pitiful at me. And that doesn't surprise me because we're standing in a tiny, shaky cabin that's being transported into the sky of Lloret de Mar in Spain by an even more shaky crane. How did I get here? And after the 8th bottle, someone suggested, why don't we go bungee jumping together? The higher that cabin got practically, the bigger my fear became. And so the surfer dude opens the cabin door, and I'm standing directly at the edge. I'm so close to quit as I sense a hand on my shoulder. Listen, Ilja, I know that you're afraid. Everybody is up here. But if you have the courage to jump, the feeling will be just incredible. But already after 2 seconds, I thought I was flying. I could have done it forever. The only scary thing was the thought of jumping in my mind. And it's that kind of negative imagination that so often prevents us from starting a necessary change. Let me step aside again. This is probably the most important material in my arsenal because it helps me to boost my credibility. because I'm able to explain the core of my expertise, which is by definition very rational, or in other words, boring, with a highly emotional story. Logic is important. It lets you think different, but it's always strong emotions that let you take the necessary action. Ask yourself the following questions. What is that personal story you are afraid to tell, but you know would make a big difference for so many people? How can you use one story for many different purposes? And how can you make your audiences feel the data and make them feel the change? So let's get back into keynote mode, because it's time for the third choice of change. Choose to take action on a consistent basis. And I will never forget how hard I had to fight for my first paid speaking gig. Until one day, I got a call from an HR manager from a big corporation whom I probably already contacted 6 or 7 times. Mr. Grzeskowitz, it was hard work, but I managed to convince our board. We'd like to hire you, but as I hung up that phone, that feeling of euphoria quickly transformed into extreme nervousness, because that gig was in a huge, large venue, and they announced me in a glossy 2-page article in their company magazine. And then I came on stage, looked the audience into the eye, and then I delivered a speech, which probably wouldn't have been good enough for the parents' meeting in my daughter's kindergarten. The HR manager who fought so badly for me came to me afterwards and said, "Oh, Ilja, we run this event for 11 years now, but never once was the atmosphere that bad. That was the gig I had desperately been waiting for, and I messed it up. And I was so close to drown in my own self-pity when something happened that eventually saved me." I was looking into the eyes of a lady who was probably around 75 years old. She said, "My father's waiting outside. He is 96 years old and wants to attend your seminar." Well, it's an honor to have you in my seminar, but what on earth can I possibly teach you? Stop it, Ilja. There's actually a lot. I read your books and they are great. Actually, I just want to dive deeper into that topic of change. It's never too late to make a big difference. If a 96-year-old man approaches life with an attitude of making a difference, when he spreads so much optimism and embraces change, why on earth am I even considering giving up? And since then, so many great things have happened. I published 6 more books. Number 7 is on its way. I gave presentations all over the world. And let me step aside one last time. Of course, there's the actual content, which is about being open, being persistent, and to embrace and to commit to that concept of lifelong learning. But it has an impact on a far deeper level. I'm selling from the stage without actually selling. And I'm not doing that by sharing a success story or telling you how great I am, but by sharing one of the lowest moments of my life. Because deep relationships are always built on your struggles and your failures, because that makes you human, and they probably have experienced something very similar. It's all about connection. When I say, and today more than 75 of my bookings come through personal referrals from satisfied clients, I always add this line. And if my content was valuable to you, it would mean the world to me if you would refer me to a friend, give me a testimonial, or bring me back for another event. And 7 out of 10 times, the people follow one and very often even all 3 of these requests. And you can do exactly the same. Just ask yourself the following 3 questions. Are you vulnerable enough so that your audience can connect with you? How can you craft a story that uses your struggles and failures to build a deep relationship? And what is the call to action you want your audience to leave the room with? But there's one thing that is the most important one. You need to tie your stories, your speeches, and your whole business to the life that you're living. You need to walk your talk. Let's build a legacy together. Oh yeah, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.